Hello, my chicklets. Thank you for stopping by. I have a few announcements before we get into the story. First one being, thank you all so much for being so kind to Trini last week while I was gone being sick. You might be able to hear it in my voice, but I'm not fully recovered. However, I think I'm recovered enough to read us all a story. The second announcement is that for any of you who have been here for over a year, you know that I took October off last year. I'm going to do that again this year so that I have an intentional break. You will still get stories, they just won't be read by me. I will come back in November and we will be reading my superhero series, Flip the Script, where we have villain Patton and superhero Remus. So there is that to look forward to. If you are missing me too terribly in October, you can go over to AO3 and Tumblr, where I will be posting an October series called Echoes of the Past, where I took a bunch of prompts from horror books in order to write stories. Don't worry, most of the stories aren't scary. That is the last bit of housekeeping I have, so without further ado, let me read to you Unreadable Masks. Oh wow, you're just as handsome as I thought you'd be. The man looked at Janus with piercing eyes that were far too observant. He felt like each of his movements was being watched, like a hawk watching his prey. He had no idea what this man was talking about, but he was never one to admit it. I know you didn't want to share your picture on the website, but you could have given me a bit more of a description than curly brown hair and matching eyes with a cream button-up undershirt. First off, his hair wasn't that curly. Secondly, his eyes were not both brown, and he took pride in that fact. And thirdly, his shirt was corn silk, not cream. He had half a mind to tell the other man, but he was curious to see where this went. His work quickly forgotten beside him, it sounded like he was looking for a date, but was given a far too vague description to find the right person. Anyway, I'm Remus, you're Patton. Nice to meet you in person. Honestly, I've never met someone so encouraging before. He had a light dusting of blush on his cheeks, and Janus realized this man was adorable. Really fucking adorable. Like, I kind of understand that you don't like horror, but you still let me ramble about my story and that's hella cool. So, can I buy you a coffee today or something? Janus wanted to continue, wanted to play into the fantasy that he was some soft-hearted sap who had somehow managed to woo this man. But he had learned the hard way that relationships built on lies would never last. He had two options. He could either come clean and be nice about it, or he could be a sarcastic asshole to stave off the hurt. It was easier not to think about what could have been when you fully ruined your chances. Do I really look like some soft-hearted sap to you? He asked, rolling his eyes. I'm actually a rather big fan of horror. Also, this shirt is corn silk, not cream, and I would rather not be bothered by someone who can't tell the difference. Remus curled back, surprise filling each portion of his body. He was so easy to read, and Janus hated that he wanted to go through every page. Rude. At least he was honest. Remus, is that you? I'm so sorry I'm running late. My bus got delayed. And then there was the cutest puppy on the way here. Oh, is this your friend? The new man was soft, fluffy almost. His hair certainly had a bounce and curl to it, and his eyes were a deep brown that Janus could get lost in. Patton? Yep, that's me. No, I don't think it is. Patton looked confused, and Janus was briefly reminded of a puppy. All soft edges. Oh? Come on, let's get a different table. The two walked off, and that was that. Janus watched as they went to their own table to start their date, and Janus did his best to return to his work. It almost felt lacking after an interaction like that, though. It wasn't often that he felt his heart pine after two men at the same time. He might have had some fun if he had been more gentle, more honest. But he wasn't going to get himself into another situation where he was the spare. Still, he found his eyes occasionally flitting over to their table, glancing for just a second before he forced himself back to his work. They seemed to be enjoying themselves, soft laughs floating their way to his ears, gentle touches always present when his eyes caught the table. Eventually, Janus gave up, packing up his work computer and leaving the coffee shop. He would come back another day when his mind had finally let go of the inane idea of a relationship. He didn't return to the coffee shop for another week, not wanting to chance that the lovebirds would be there. He was happy to see the place almost empty and took his regular spot by the window after he ordered his tea. It was nice to get a break from the office to work on other things. He could pour himself into contracts and not worry about anything else. About time you came back here. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me. Remus plopped himself on the chair in front of Janus, leaning far too close into his personal space. So you want to explain what all that was about last time? I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not gay. Obviously a sarcastic quip as the other man rolled his eyes so hard they would have fallen out had he been a cartoon. At first, I thought you were an asshole, but then I realized you kept looking at us, and not in the ew gross way, but in the I want to shove my... I get the picture. You are so lewdly trying to paint, but I think you have me misunderstood. Do I? Workaholic loner, probably own your own company for the fancy duds. You take good care of your employees, but you like to act like a complete asshole about it because you want to pretend you don't care. Problem is you care too much. So, how much did I get right, Mr. Businessman? Remus leaned forward on his elbows, challenging Janus. He could leave. He could stand up and walk away. But he didn't want to. Some twisted part of him was enjoying the attention and was curious about the man attempting to strip him of all his facades. Depending on your definition of a few of those words. That's what I thought. Remus looked so satisfied with himself as he finally sat down. Which makes me think the asshole act last week was also fake. Something to protect yourself. And though I cut an imposing figure, I kind of doubt you would talk to me that way if you thought I was violent. So you weren't protecting yourself physically, which means emotionally, so... Suddenly Remus's voice got soft and serious. Someone hurt you, and you don't want it to happen again? Janus fought not to show any change of emotion on his face, but the other man was watching him so closely. He must have noticed the twitch in Janus's eyebrow, the tightening of his fists against the table. Those eyes pierced through all of Janus's defenses, and he wasn't sure he liked it. That's what I thought. His voice was still soft, but he stood up, pulling a sheet of paper out of his pocket. Give me a call when you're ready. Or just text me. You might be surprised by what you find. He gave Janus a slight wink. Later, Lord Business. Janus sat there, completely at a loss for words as his fingers traced the piece of paper. He hadn't been expecting to see Remus, and honestly, he'd been completely expecting it to go wrong when he heard the man speak, but this was... He looked down at the paper, unfolding it and seeing a phone number written in messy scrawl. He wasn't going to call. He wasn't going to open himself up like that. But maybe a text wouldn't hurt. Thank you all for listening. Again, this was Unreadable Masks. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.